Welcome to Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. There are a number of very important developments currently taking place within the cryptocurrency investment sector. So we wanted to bring on today's very special guest, Mr. Simon Dixon. Simon is the CEO and founder of BnkToTheFuture.com. This is a huge online investment platform which has invested over $525 million into fintech companies. Simon is an ex-investment banker turned Bitcoiner. He is the author of the book Bank to the Future. Simon is a fintech and Bitcoin company angel investor with investments in Bitstamp, Shapeshift, Kraken, and over 100 other companies. Simon is also a commentator within the mainstream media, including the BBC, CNBC, Reuters, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal. We want to take a moment here to mention that our founder, Tom Beck of Portfolio Wealth Global, has just published his top 4 picks for stocks for 2018, and one of the companies within the Tom's top 4 is focused upon cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. Everyone can find Tom's list at portfoliowealthglobal.com/my picks. As always, it is a completely free download, and this is an absolute treasure trove of amazing information. And now, turning to our amazing guest, Mr. Simon Dixon. Simon, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you, especially at this time. Simon, we want to start off with something very interesting. Tom calls the major hoax of this year within the cryptocurrency sector. It relates to the misinformation campaign that seems to be taking place by powerful companies who are trying to overhype fears of regulations and unlawful guidelines within cryptocurrencies. And it seems to Tom that this is a concentrated effort to get the public to sell today, while the buyers, on the other hand, are Wall Street tycoons and financial institutions, which are the ones that actually seem to be spreading these sort of fear rumors. What are your thoughts on this perspective?
Well, there's no doubt about it that the institutions are coming in. They saw what happened in 2017 after ridiculing, after thinking it was going to go away, and they kind of missed the boat. Since then, institutions, a lot of institutional players have come along and said Goldman Sachs has opened trading desks, and the CME has opened futures trading for Bitcoin. There's definitely been, ever since the turning point when Bitcoin went on to the CME futures markets, we entered a bear market there. It might be a coincidence, or it might be a fact that we were definitely in an overhyped, bubble in 2017. But then I've seen that 3 or 4 times throughout crypto. I remember Bitcoin crashing from $30 to $3. That was a 90% correction. I remember seeing Bitcoin crash from $1,200 to $250. That was about an 80% correction. And now we've seen it crash from $20,000 to maybe about $5,000, maybe a little bit lower. We don't know where it's going from here, but this is normal activity for this type of asset class. It is extremely volatile, but we've never really seen anything like this. We've never seen a technology that comes along and is disrupting some of the most entrenched interests in governments and traditional finance. And so they missed the boat. They recognize that Bitcoin actually is something that to be taken seriously right now. And I do think a lot of hedge funds are responsible for playing usual shenanigans with prices. But hey, the reality is with Bitcoin is it's a long-term investment. Having been around since 2011 in this industry, since I spoke at that first Bitcoin conference, I've seen this type of behavior. And if you're playing the short-term trends, if you're not a professional trader, then you will get crucified. Bitcoin is a long-term investment. It's a really, really easy strategy. There's only over 21 million of them. They get more and more useful each year. All you need to do is hold them, really.
Right? So you really agree that there's something going on?
Well, in every market, there's shenanigans.
There's always something going on.
if you're playing the short term, you're subject to price manipulation. But price manipulation never really continues over long term fundamentals.
It's so interesting that price manipulation, we hear it all, in gold, in silver, in commodities. It's very interesting now that that is starting to enter the cryptocurrency and blockchain sector so fast.
Well, I think it's always been there. When it was a very low liquid thing, you had exchanges and people that are on top of the information curve. But it really doesn't matter. Short term is short term, long term is long term. If you're trying to ride these waves, then watch shows like Billions, and you realize who controls the market short term. Right. It's going to be no different with crypto, but in the long term, the fundamentals prevail.
That's very interesting. Now, Simon, can cryptos be shorted?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had shorting for an awful long time. I think, I'm a shareholder in Bitfinex. They've had a market where you could lend your Bitcoin for interest to people that wanted to go short on Bitcoin. And I think OKX also had that this started around about 2012 or something. Now you've had the CME futures, which is a cash settled market. So they're not actually buying and selling Bitcoin to settle those futures markets. But yeah, if you want to play the downside of Bitcoin, is a very dangerous thing to bet against.
Yes.
But if you
short it, it's going to.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the losses are more than your capital at risk. With when you're long something, you can only lose all your money, but with shorting, you can lose more than your money. And Bitcoin is ultra volatile. So if you want to play that kind of gambling, then there is definitely ways to short it. Or if you want to use it as a genuine hedging tool when you're trying to do something with Bitcoin, then the ability to short is important.
Wow. Now, Simon, what are some of the exciting career opportunities inside this space? Who is making the big money outside of the investors, of course?
Well, obviously, it's been a very lucrative. If you just held Bitcoin and then you reinvested some of that into Ethereum and then you reinvested some of that into ICOs, then there's a new class of high net worth investor that came from this crypto activist movement. But really, the big winners so far in terms of many of the companies that we've invested in are definitely exchanges. Exchanges are masters of the universe in our industry. The transition from fiat to crypto is a hugely profitable business right now. One of the exchanges, Binance, recently announced that it had made $1 billion in profit this year. After 1 year, it's about an 18 months old company. And they even made more profits in Q1 of this year than Deutsche Bank.
Oh, my Lord. That's incredible. So the exchanges are really one of the places to be.
Well, yeah, this is the gateway to onboarding the world. And every year, more and more people are discovering Bitcoin, and they need it for a different reason. Very early on, people were using it in order to buy drugs and to gamble. Then the people in Cyprus realized that it was a way of actually protecting against the banks stealing their money. Then the people in Greece realized it's a way of protecting against the ATMs that were closed down. Then people in India realized that it's a way of protecting against the government making their cash illegal. And then people in people in Mexico realized that it's a hedge against Donald Trump. And then people in UK realized that it's a hedge against Brexit. So all the traditional financial system needs to do is continue doing what it's already doing. And Bitcoin just needs to continue doing what it's already doing. And you will have more and more fiat being sucked into crypto. And that fiat to exchange into crypto is all happening at the exchanges or the OTC markets, which is why they're onboarding the world into crypto. And once you hit crypto, you tend not to leave crypto.
Wow. So it's the fear of everything else, all of the manipulation and they've sort of created the situation. Everybody's afraid to be in anywhere else, actually.
Crypto is an asset class that works without the traditional financial system. It's also a currency that works without the bank. And it also acts like a stock as a short bet against the traditional financial system collapsing. So there's many uses to this, and there's also a technology and a protocol that's being used as a ledger to do many different things.
Now, Simon, is the word cryptocurrencies applicable any longer? Or are all these projects, there are a lot of various projects today. Should we really name them currencies? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we do have a bit of a jargon crisis, and that has always been here since day one, because people never really knew, because people were using Bitcoin as a commodity, they were using it as a currency, they were using it like an investment, like a stock, and you know, the reality is that the crypto sector has all of those. In terms of the original investment theses of sound money, the ability to own your own money, spend your own money, and have a monetary policy based upon savings rather than debt, there's only really one of those, and that's Bitcoin. And that's because it is truly decentralized. Everything else has got a founder, a promoter that becomes the central point of attack and stands to benefit from any type of cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency isn't really the right industry. I'd say you've got Bitcoin, which is the only one that's tackling the sound money problem. Then you've got things like Ethereum, which is a smart contract platform, got nothing to do with currency.
Right.
It's in fact, it's become more disruptive to the IPO market because people are launching tokens on this blockchain, and they're kind of acting in replacement for doing an IPO. And then you've got, you know, things that are being used for more privacy-centric things like Monero, you know, which is taking Bitcoin's original user case of anonymous transactions on the internet for things that the government doesn't want you to do. As people realize that Bitcoin is actually quite transparent and pseudonymous, so not necessarily the best place to do things the government doesn't want you to do.
Right.
But as censorship-resistant money and sound money, it's a very good innovation. And then all these thousands of things that you've seen since then, they're more akin to penny stocks. And, you know, stocks in startups, but they're not quite stocks because you know, it's all done on a blockchain, it's open, and it's a different thing.
Right. You can't hide anything. So
yeah, but really, you know, the crypto industry is an attack on the entire financial sector, and the financial sector embracing that, because otherwise they're just going to be irrelevant in the future.
Now, Simon, speaking of merchants, why are merchants not accepting cryptocurrencies yet? What are the major stumbling blocks? And how many years do you see it taking before this actually enters the mainstream for everybody?
2 words, Gresham's Law. Gresham's Law is the law that states that a rational human will try and spend money that they think will go down in value and save money they think will go up in value. And so if you own Bitcoin and you believe in the investment theses that there's going to be 21 million of them only, they're going to get more and more useful every year, and therefore there's going to be a fight for the Bitcoins, and therefore the only way for that to be globally scalable is to actually have the price increase, then you start to hoard your Bitcoins and you don't want to spend them. No one wants to be Bitcoin Pizza Guy. Bitcoin Pizza Guy was the first transaction ever done in Bitcoin where he spent 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas.
I know.
And if you're spending Bitcoin, then everyone is going to have their Bitcoin pizza story if you believe in the theses. Now, I do spend them simply because I like to work on adoption and help people and spread Bitcoins around the crypto economy. But it's not a rational thing to do. I want to spend my fiat because my fiat is based upon debt, and it rewards people that take on debt because the value goes down, whereas crypto tends to reward the people that save it because the wealthy people are all the savers. And so really it's just a simple rational thing. And therefore, if you're taking the thesis of Bitcoin, until at the moment, you've got to remember the majority of the world still think it's a fraud, a scam, a currency for drug dealers. What changed in 2017 is the whole world at least heard of it. Very few of them understood it, but at least the world heard of it. In 2018 and 2019 and beyond, more and more things are coming along that are encouraging people to actually use it, and then they're realizing what it actually is. So it becomes more and more useful. So while the majority of the world still think it's a scam, a Ponzi scheme, a currency for drug dealers, then you will always have volatility. And while you have volatility, the economics of Bitcoin are designed whereby the price will go up in the long term, as long as it becomes more useful each year. Once the whole world is using Bitcoin, and the whole world knows about Bitcoin, and they don't think it's a Ponzi scheme, and they don't think it's a criminal just for drug dealers, that's the point at which it will probably stabilize or not be a good investment. Because that's when, once everybody's on board, once the banks are on board, once everyone else is on board, and once everyone's using it, then it will be deeply liquid. It will lose some of its investment theses type of value, and then move more to, at that point, it might be used as a medium of exchange, and more for merchant adoption. But at the moment, merchant adoption is not something that is essential for Bitcoin to become sound money. And that's kind of the debate at the moment. Should Bitcoin be merchant adoption sound money? Well, if you want sound money is pretty stable. It doesn't, your rent costs the same every month. You don't want your rent, you don't want to go bankrupt and not be able to pay your rent just because someone was speculating on Bitcoin and drove the price down. So that's not a very good medium of exchange. But it's and that's why if you want Bitcoin to be a medium of exchange, and you lose a lot of its investment value.
I see. And that's so true. I mean, the minute you spend it, it'll, double, triple. So whoever, has received your Bitcoin really got a great deal. Now, Simon, switching gears just a little bit, let's talk about the epic failure of ICOs. When someone builds a traditional business, they have to go to the bank and get a personal or a business loan, and they can foreclose on you. But with traditional IPOs, investors risk big money and millions of dollars. And when we turn to the ICOs, it seems to be a no-brainer. And many people are offering these ICOs. They have nothing to lose. They're getting tons and tons of money. Can you share with us some of the warning signs for investors on how to conduct proper due diligence before investing in these ICOs?
Yeah, I mean, it's very tricky. And so, ICOs, people often ask me, what's your opinion on ICOs? And they'll ask me, is it a scam? And I'll tell them yes. Is it a Ponzi scheme? I'll tell them yes. Are there companies that are going to change the world? Yes. It's all of those. Is it disrupting the IPO market? Is it causing problems for venture capitalists? Are the venture capitalists no longer the control of all the purse strings for technology companies? All of the above is true. So it's just a crazy industry, and it really is, at the moment, a free market that's becoming more and more regulated as the regulators jump in. Mm-hmm. At Bank to the Future, we've always done things in line with securities law because that was our niche that we started with. We knew that the future of finance was going to look very different. So we built a platform whereby people could actually invest in this industry. We were investing in many of the early companies. So one of the main things we look for is people that have been around the block, as it were, pardon the pun, and they've been around for a while, and they know what blockchain's good for and not so good for, and they know how to spot the people that are kind of saying blockchain's going to do everything, because it doesn't do everything. In fact, sometimes it's a very inefficient, slow, and horrible way of transferring value. But it's worth it for the decentralization and censorship resistance. So the type of thing we're looking for is a team of people that know what they're doing. You're not going to be able to audit the technology. There's very few people in this world that are actually qualified enough to actually look at that technology and know whether it's going to work or not. So you need to be very well diversified. You need to have good advisors. And one of the things we do at BnkToTheFuture.com is that we look at 30 different deals, applications that apply to us every day, and we only really take about 2 of those a month that we launch on our platform and open up to our investors. So there is a lot of rubbish out there, but there also is things that are going to be very, very disruptive to many different areas in the finance world. I still do believe that the number one application of blockchain is, well, firstly, Bitcoin, sound money, and secondly, disruption in the traditional financial sector. So we tend to stick to fintech over some of the more exotic user cases that people are coming up with.
Yeah, this is just such an exciting new industry. I'm being facetious when I say everything is a scam with ICOs, because some of them are going to be absolutely spectacular, and a lot of them are going to be complete scams. And how do you know the difference? This does bring us to your platform. I'd like you to tell everybody when it was developed, what exactly it does, what was your inspiration behind it? Please describe what this is for everyone.
Sure. Well, we started in 2010 to actually try and persuade the first regulator in the world to allow us to do venture capital online and allow people to invest online. And that took about 4 years for us to secure a license, but we successfully persuaded the UK regulator to issue the first registrations for this. There was about 3 companies doing that at the time, and then we were one of those. Now, the problem was that I spoke at the very first Bitcoin conference in the world, and because Bitcoin turned out to be a great investment, we decided just to dedicate the platform to supporting this industry. Now, at that time, there was no one that wanted to invest in the industry. And the regulators, when we were in the UK, said that you have to only work with UK companies and you can only take on UK investors. Now, there wasn't enough investors in the world that were interested in investing in Bitcoin companies, let alone just the UK. And there was very few deals that were in the UK as well, let alone, there was very few deals in the whole world, let alone the UK.
People are still like, what is this? Right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we decided to relocate to Hong Kong and go and register with a more globally minded regulator in Cayman Islands. And then get a suite of different broker-dealer licenses to deal with different people in different jurisdictions. And we set about creating the first global online investment platform. Now, because we were still, this was around about 2015, the industry was still very strange, a lot less volume, a lot more, interested people than it were today. So we were very fortunate enough to get equity in many of the most valuable companies in the industry today and do their funding rounds through BnkToTheFuture.com. So our investors on the platform were investing in, companies that are just huge in today's world, but back then were really, really risky. And we had a structure whereby you could find those deals. We'd pull all the investors together, and then we'd act as a venture capitalist, but we'd allow investors to invest online and get kind of some of the benefits of both. But then ICOs came along. So we were investing in many of the very first ICOs like Mastercoin, MadeSafe, Storage, Ethereum, and many later became. And then that started to become more and more disruptive to our industry. So we put together a regulated structure whereby you could actually invest in such things, but under a more regulated environment. But the regulated environment was being disrupted by the decentralized peer-to-peer nature of token sales.
It's just crazy.
And so in order to hedge our business, we were just investing them all. But then more and more of our customers stopped selling equity and started selling tokens. And I remember about 5 or 6 of our deals all suddenly went over to tokens. And in the very early days of ICOs, it was very peer-to-peer, decentralized. It was democratizing investing. There was thousands of investors in every ICO. But then we knew at some point the regulators are going to come in and regulate this. So we had the platform. We were all ready. We were just waiting for, if the decentralized thing was going to disrupt traditional finance, then great. We were invested in the industry. We believed in that. But at some point we thought reality would kick in and regulators will require people to do it in the regulated structure. And so while we are, doing it under a regulated structure, we also are Bitcoin believers, and we were there from the very beginning. So we got the best of both worlds, I think. And so what you're seeing right now is that now regulators are coming into the ICO world. There's a lot more shenanigans happening where venture capitalists are actually just getting all of the good deals because it's just becoming now where you're selling most of your token to people with vast wealth and venture capital. They're negotiating the best terms, and then you're selling them to the retail, and there's all this OTC trading and all sorts of stuff happening in the background. And that's because it's gone less peer-to-peer. So platforms like us, kind of maintain the best of these hybrid worlds where we're investing in decentralized technology, but we're doing it in a way whereby it actually is done in a regulated environment, and the founders aren't going to go to prison, have these regulatory issues. And we add a bit of trust in there as this regulated environment continues. And so where are we now? Well, we are a platform where people can invest in equity tokens, securities tokens, utility tokens, and various other products in the financial technology sector. And we'll pull together all the investors, and that's done, and then we'll do a lot of the due diligence on the companies and pick the ones that we would invest into and allow people to choose if they want to co-invest with us. And so that's kind of what we do. And we're just here to support the industry, really. We believe that in the future of finance looks very different from the past. We believe that every single aspect of traditional finance is going to be chipped away by crypto one step at a time. And this is just a really fast-moving industry, so we adjust to how the industry is moving and provide investment opportunities as the industry grows.
Right, this is just such an explosive industry, and you have invested in some of the top dogs in it that have really rocketed very quickly. What's your criteria when you go? We mentioned you've invested in over 100 fintech companies. What is your criteria when you're looking for a company?
The main thing for me is team. One thing I've learned over the years is that someone with a great idea but a very bad team tends not to execute anything. But a very good team with a really bad idea tends to pivot and make it happen anyway. There is a problem with ICOs, and that is that people are raising too much too soon. And the challenge with it is that sometimes the best strategy is to just sit on the Bitcoin and Ethereum, because what they're going to create is not going to outperform Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's a very, very strange industry. But really, to me, it's a team of people that are attracted to a mission, and they've had a long, they've been in the industry for a while. Like, for example, at Bank to the Future, before we created Bank to the Future, we were really, really into many of the problems in banking. We were giving talks all around the world about the problems in banking, the financial crisis, and Bank to the Future was really just an extension of our mission. We're looking for similar things. We're not looking for people that are coming along, jumping on the ICO bandwagon, jumping on the blockchain Bitcoin bandwagon. We're looking for people that are really harnessing this technology to create something that no matter how bad it goes, no matter how hard it goes, they're going to stick to it for the long term, because building this technology is not an easy thing. And so we're looking for, other great investors. And what we've also found is that you can take a normal team, and if you put loads of other great investors around it, then they can introduce all the contacts and help the company grow a lot. So we're mainly looking for people, and we're looking for people that are really on a missionary. They're going to stay there for the long term, and also, advisors that are really been in the industry and can help in a big way.
It's so extraordinary because it gives people the opportunity to go to one place rather than try to find all of these different ICOs, especially for people that aren't too familiar with the sector themselves. And there's going to be so many hundreds and hundreds of ICOs taking place probably within the next couple of years, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, it's our full-time job to stay up to date with this. We've got a full-time team, and even we can't stay up to date. So right. I don't know how the person that's got a job doing this on the side as a hobby and trying to trade has got any chance.
Well, it's great to know. You can go to BnkToTheFuture.com. Now, Simon, what is unique about Bitcoin, and what does a competitor need to do to replicate or compete with it?
The best thing a competitor can do is give up and not try and do it. Bitcoin is unique because it has three properties, which is it's money you can own, money you can spend, and it has a sound monetary policy. Anybody can replicate those things. They can create the code, but the problem is the person trying to replicate it. Bitcoin organically grew with no funding, no venture capital, no investors, in a time when nobody cared. And it took about 5 years to really iron out the bugs to make it, something that was worthy of a lot more people. The original founders, they're unknown, and they handed the project over after a couple of years. Now, what we've seen with Bitcoin is that it is extremely decentralized, even though there's pockets of centralization. Let me explain that. There's a few areas in the ecosystem. You have miners, which are verifying all the transactions. Now, while people state that Bitcoin mining is fairly centralized in China. More and more players are coming along now because it's got the value, it's got the reputation, it's becoming more and more decentralized. But the miners did try and make massive changes in the protocol, but they couldn't get their way because they had to persuade the developers to do it. Now, some people say that the developers is more centralized, is the most decentralized development team there is out there. But people say, well, if developers try and exercise influence and control the code, well, they've got to try and get the nodes and operators to agree, the miners try to agree, and then you've got to try and get the businesses. Now, all the businesses did collude in last year and try and change the code of Bitcoin because they wanted bigger blocks for it to scale. They tried to coordinatedly get together and change Bitcoin's code. The developers tried to get something that they wanted. The miners tried to get something they wanted, but none of them could get their way until it reached consensus. And the reason it's hard to change anything in Bitcoin, the reason you can rely upon it to be sound money, is because it is extremely hard to change things. Now, any other project will come along and say, hey, I'm a reputable person. I'm going to try and compete with Bitcoin. I can do it more energy efficient. I can create more privacy. I can create a better governance structure where change can happen faster, or I can make it scale twice as fast or 3 times as fast or 1,000,000 times as fast. But it's created by a person, and that person, the whole community then rely upon that person to make the changes, and that person or that group of people become the centralized point of attack that the government can take down or the miners can decide to, and every other cryptocurrency, every other thing out there does not have that decentralized nature, which is why Bitcoin is the world reserve currency of cryptocurrencies with the potential of becoming the world reserve currency of all currencies and every asset class. Nothing else will do that. There's just not a time and environment where that will happen. And so anybody that thinks they're going to compete with Bitcoin, just give up. You've either got to be this anonymous person and do what Satoshi did and create this perfect environment. But today there's too much attention. There's too many eyeballs. It will not be replicated. It's a freak invention. It's a black swan event. It's like trying to reinvent the internet. It just isn't going to happen. And so that's what I would say to someone trying. However, if you want to carve out your own niche and do what Ethereum did, where you end up doing disruption within the IPO markets, is what they thought they were creating, a smart contract platform, but now it looks like they're creating a securitization platform and a fundraising platform, then that's a different niche altogether, and the two don't compare. And all the other things are just tackling little bit of niches. And then you've got things that act more like stocks. They're nothing to do with competing with Bitcoin. So it's a stupid thing to say. Bitcoin is our best shot at sound money. It's far too important to too many people, and it's such an important thing that the world needs.
Awesome. Now, Simon, is there any progress being made with people in our world who are unbanked and undocumented in terms of cryptocurrencies, helping to offer monetary alternatives?
Certainly a lot of people are trying to tackle that area, but at the moment we're not having the full impact we'd like to have. There are stories of people in countries where they have really corrupt and horrible currency regimes like Vietnam and Zimbabwe, which are actually reliant upon cryptocurrency as a mechanism to actually store value. Then you've got countries like China, which are really mining Bitcoin because you can put your currency in, get Bitcoin out, and then it fluctuates around the crypto markets. And then you've got countries like Japan that are recognizing it as legal tender. But we've been investing in companies that are trying to bring it to some of the unbanked regions, like UnoCoin in India, and BitPesa in Africa, and BitMurray in Zimbabwe. And many different areas like this that are doing some really great things. The growth is a lot slower, but these are, I think the main challenge is that there's several more innovations that need to come out before this actually is work. Because the reality is, if you are on the breadline and you need every penny that you got to spend on your expenditure, then you don't need cryptocurrency, because you could end up losing value just because you're caught in a volatile market. And so this is the important of things like stable coins, which are coming along, which are cryptocurrencies pegged to traditional fiat money, which allows you to kind of manage your life around that. Now, if you're asking someone to put together in sub-Saharan Africa to put together a hedging strategy for Bitcoin and use a stable currency in order to pay their rent, it ain't going to happen. So it's up to entrepreneurs to serve those needs and create really simple user experiences where all the technology is in the back and they just simply use it. And we're not there yet. We're still quite far away from that. We're making progress. Things like Lightning Network are first steps. Things like, we're really still at that geeky stage where you've got to be a technology geek to try and, really embrace this sector right now. But I think we've got a long way to go till we get there. We will get there.
But it is coming up in the future, and it's going to be a great benefit for those parts of the world. That's wonderful to know.
Absolutely.
What are some of the others, just out of curiosity, things that what's part of the infrastructure, monetarily speaking, that need to be in place for cryptocurrencies to really be able to help those areas of the earth?
I'd say the biggest thing is scale. At the moment, blockchains do not scale. We got a lot more technological innovation to do. We've got experiments where people are looking at increasing block sizes and seeing if that helps with scale. And there are others that are looking at taking different layer 2 technology and taking transactions off the actual blockchain so that you can do many million times more transactions than you could at the start. To give you an idea, we can currently do about 4 to 7 transactions per second in Bitcoin. A Visa is doing something like 300,000 per second. And so we're way, way, way far away until we can actually hit that at scale. And so scaling is really the bottleneck. But this year is one thing that's great about bear markets. What we've seen in the past is when we have a bear market, we get a lot less distracted with the noise. Like as businesses, we were onboarding hundreds of thousands of customers. Exchanges were onboarding hundreds of thousands of customers. When the bear market comes along, they get a chance to breathe, and everyone starts building and focusing on development, ready for the next bull market again. And so bear markets are really, really important for our industry so that we can really focus on some of these scaling challenges and building out. And so what you're seeing a lot this year is really, really important infrastructure. It's too geeky to even get into, but really important infrastructure that's going to help us scale to the world.
Too geeky to even understand for anybody. But an amazing industry to be in, right?
Absolutely.
Now, Simon, this has been an amazing interview, and we so appreciate you coming on. How can everyone follow you to follow your work?
Well, if you want to follow me personally, the best place is Twitter, where I'm most active, which is at Simon Dixon with an X, twit. Simon Dixon was taken, and I took it years ago when I didn't even know what Twitter was, and I've been played because people started following me, so I'm at Simon Dixon Twit.
Oh, that's great.
And BnkToTheFuture.com is where I make where we list all our investments and the things that we're involved with. We launched our own token this year, which is the BF token. You can track how that's getting on at CoinMarketCap. That's a membership token which gives people priority access to deals on our platform when they have that token. And yeah, that's the best place to get me, I'd say.
That's awesome. Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Simon Dixon, CEO and founder of the online investment platform BnkToTheFuture.com. For Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.